Let me see the list. Hello, everybody. My name is Vikas, and I'll be teaching you introduction to ASP.NET MVC4. So today we'll be learning how do we get started with MVC4. So just let me share my screen with you first. Just a minute. Okay. First, let me open my presentation. Okay. So let's start with introduction to ASP.NET MVC. My name is Vikas Lama, and I'm working as a senior software developer. I've been currently working on a STMS internal project called NR Tax Enablement and PM Systems, working as a senior .NET developer. I've been working as a .NET developer for like 5-6 years and working on creating MVC web applications for like 3-4 years I've been working on. So today in this chapter, these are the things that we'll be learning. First of all, we'll be learning what is MVC. Then we'll look into the MVC application structure, how the MVC web application structure looks like. Then we'll move on to controllers, what are controllers and how do they work. And then we'll move on to models, means models they are known as data. So how do we present data, which we later bind with views and give them a user view, means how do we present the data in views. So these are the things that we'll be discussing in today's topic. So first of all, what is MVC? MVC is an application framework to separate out application business logic into 3 separate components. Let me tell you that MVC is a framework which have been embraced by several other languages as well, but not only the C#. So if you learn MVC in C#, then the general concept about MVC can be used in all programming languages. You can use it in Java as well, or you can use it in Python as well. So there are several other languages which embrace MVC. So what is MVC? MVC has three business logic. There are three separated out business logic. The first one is model. Model is the data layer where we handle with the data logic. Then there is this view. View is the presentation layer, means here we work on the user interface. Then we have controller. Controller is the manager of request and response handler. It accepts a request, and based upon the request, it processes that request and provides you the response, which it later binds with view or some other action results and then presents it back to you. So basically, when you send any request to controller, it accepts the request, and then based upon that request, it gives you the data, and the data can be bind to the view and gives you back as a response. So that's how MVC works. So here, model, view, and controller. These three different components are separated out, and that's how MVC works. So to build an MVC application in ASP.NET, we need an IDE, Integrated Development Environment, and we all use Visual Studio for developing MVC applications. So let's open my Visual Studio. So this is my Visual Studio. It's taking a little while. Okay, so this Visual Studio, this is the ID that we're going to use to create MVC applications, and you can see on the left hand there is new project, open project, and open from source control. That means if you are using a source control, then like TFS or Git, then you can use from there as well. So, but since it's a beginning, we'll be creating a new project, which you can create a new project from here as well, or you can go to File menu, click on New, and then go to Project. It's basically the same thing. So let's do from here, no problem. Here, this is the dialog that you can see when you click on New Project, and there are several other projects that you can create using Visual Studio. It doesn't constrain itself creating this Visual Studio application, but it gives you extensibility to create other applications as well, which you can see right here. These are the type of applications that I can create using Visual Studio. But right now, let's stick to web applications. So right now we have three options: ASP.NET Web Application, ASP.NET Core Web Application, and ASP.NET Core Web Application Framework. This one's .NET Core, this one's .NET Framework. And the list of these templates can be varied based on the Visual Studio version. Right now, mine is 2015, so it might vary based on the version. But in 15, you can choose this one, ASP.NET Web Application. Here you give a name of the application. Let's say this is my first MVC application, and this is the location where my applications files are going to be stored. So, and let's click on OK. So once you click on OK, then you will get this dialog where you will be choosing the templates of MVC applications. There are several other templates which you can choose from: INT, Web Forms, MVC API, single page application, which is known as SPA as well, or Azure API app, Azure mobile app, or Azure mobile service. So let's not go deep into this for now. I'll be creating MVC applications. Okay. Besides that, if you have previously worked on ASP.NET framework before, you might have experience working on web forms as well. So before we'll be working on creating web form applications, which used to have ASPX extensions. But now we have this MVC, which also implements ASPX engine, but rather than nowadays, lately Razor View engine has been implemented widely, and it's been very popular. So MVC, that's where we will be using Razor View engine. So this is the MVC application, and when you select this one, down below over here, you can see the add folders and code references for web forms, MVC, and API. So we'll be just working on creating MVC applications. That's why I have this one checked, and it's fine. We won't be checking others. And here's authentication, and which will go, which we'll talk about this later in our next webinar session. So let's leave it over there like it is. And there's this unit test. You might have heard about unit tests. But we will not be discussing about this one today. So let's leave this one as it is and click on OK. So once you click on OK, it will start creating an MVC applications. Means it will be creating some directories, and we'll be fetching some files to bootstrap your application. So it will take a while. Okay, so that's how MVC application is created. So and that's about our IDE. So Visual Studio is one of the very popular IDE to create MVC applications. I mostly use Visual Studio for this. Then now let's look into the application structure. So you just saw on the screen as well. Once we created MVC application, this is how the MVC application looks like. This is the structure of MVC application. So let's go one by one. I'll try to explain you in a simpler way that you can understand. So here, this is the solution. Solution is the main solution where you can have multiple projects. But right now we have only one web project inside this one. So this is the project first MVC inside the solution called first MVC, and we have only one project over here. And this application has this is the structure of this first MVC. Here you can see the properties. This is the property of this application, and the references that are needed to run this application. And this is app data. App data is the directory where we store data for the applications, like MDF files to deal with. And this is the app start directory where we'll be having some code snippets which are executed when the application is started. And you can see there are several class files like bundle config, filter config, identity config, route config, and startup auth. So bundle config is related with bundles and minification, where we'll be bundling several JavaScript and CSS files. That means when we run the application, it creates a bundle of multiple JavaScript or CSS files into a single bundle, and which can be used later. Really makes your application go faster when you bundle or minify those JS and CSS files. Then we have this filter config. Filter config has several filter classes which we might need to filter the action results. And then we have identity config, which has configuration related with the identities. And then we have route config. Regarding route is the structure of this request. So when we send any request to an MVC application, generally we have the name of the controller, then we have name of the action, and then we have parameter to the action. That's ID. So you can see as a default, home is the controller, index is the action result, and ID is the value that is passed to this action result, which is optional over here. That means you can just type the controller name and action, and you can skip the ID. It's an optional, so you don't need to pass that one, but you can make it required as well. That's a different part. But don't get confused. We haven't talked about this controller and action result A. So just I just wanted to tell you that this is how the path of an MVC application is defined. So you just put the controller name first, and you will get the action name, and then we'll pass the ID. So this is route config, means whenever you pass request to an MVC application, this is how you send your request. We'll let us talk about controller and action. This is route config, and this is a start of authentication. Before we have when we are creating a new application, there was this authentication and there was individual accounts. So when we create MVC application, we can use MVC's built-in authentication and authorization mechanism, which makes us very easy to implement those without writing codes by ourselves. So there's a lot which we'll later discuss on. So let's leave it now. So then these are the files that gets executed when application gets started. And we have this content directory. Content directory is the directory where we store our CSS files and some of the images files as well, which we might use in our application. So you can see here bootstrap.css, bootstrap.mean.css, and site.css. These are the by default CSS files that have been embedded into this content directory by Visual Studio. So if you want to use it, then you just use it. Don't want to use it, then you just can discard it, no problem. But right now, in most of the applications, Bootstrap has been used widely. So that's why whenever we create an application, Visual Studio puts some default Bootstrap mean.css files for you, so that you can get your application started in a few seconds. Now you don't need to care about these things. So then we have this controller. Okay, so controller is where we put our controllers. So like by default, there are three controllers: account controller, which handles with your account, then home controller. You can see some action results over here. Well, we'll discuss about this. Then we have manage controller. So this is manage controller, and some action results are over there, which we can use to manage accounts. And then we have this fonts. Fonts are used to be used in our application. So these are the glyph icons. I think you have heard about the glyph icons. Glyph icons are used for the icons that are going to be used in our applications. And then we have this models, which like I've explained to you before, it's a data. We should have this is the data class, and which has some properties like email, and this data class external login, which has a return URL. So we put our data logic classes in this models. And then we have this scripts directory where we'll be putting our JavaScript files. So see, these are the basic JavaScript files that are needed to run our MVC application. So this Studio puts these files for you as well. And then we have this views directory. In views directory, we put our views. And these are the views. See, views. Even in views, we have different subdirectories. These are based upon the controllers, and so based upon those controllers, we have directories, and even in that directories, we have different views, which has a file extension called CSS.html. CSS.html means it uses Razor View Engine. In previous Visual Studio, we used to have this old ASPX View Engine and then Razor View Engine. They provided us option to use, which view engine do you want to use. But rather lately, Razor View engine has been so much popular that nowadays most of the applications use Razor as a default. So CSHTML means Razor View Engine, and ASPX means ASPX View Engine, which is the old one. So these are the views. Then we have this favicon icon. You know, the favicon icon that will be used on the as an application icon. And then we have this global ASX. Global ASX is the one that is used to call when the application gets started. You can see filter configuration, route configuration, and bundle configuration. These all uh, those app start. These are being executed from over here. And then we have this package config. These are the packages that are needed, which have been used from differences. This is just the project readme, and we have this startup class for the configuration, and we have web config. And this is where we put our web configuration files, so there's connection string, and then we might have some app settings. So these keys and that this can be stored in this web.config file. Okay, so this is how the basic MVC application looks like. So right after you create those applications, you just run this application. And you have like this ready to use application. See, this home controller. This is the home page, and this is about, and this is contact. See, you have everything ready to use application. So then you just go and play around with some controllers over here, and then you just play around with some models and some views, and then you can extend your application like that. So you see, you don't need to do so much to create Visual Studio application. It's so easy. You just go and create a new project, and it gives you all the files like CSS files, JS files, all the contents that you need to run the application. Then you can take it from there. So it's really easy to create applications in Visual Studio. So Visual Studio has made it a lot easier to create your first MVC applications and then get started from there. So this is just the basic application structure that I've explained you. So, but later on, based upon your requirements, then you can even create a multi-tier applications, or you can even add some several other files, or create more directories over here, or you can even put subdirectories inside contents. Like you can put some directory called CSS and put the CSS inside this, and create some another directory called images and put some directory cloud image files into that images directory. So you can modify this application structure later on, which is not a big problem. You can do it easily. So what I'm trying to say is this is the basic structure, but you can definitely modify it. But still, there are some of the things that you need to remember. For an example, you know, in MVC, before, while working on developing applications, there used to be configuration. But nowadays, most of the applications use convention over configuration. For an example, all the files that has controller should be inside controllers. Means inside controllers, the classes that has been suffixed as controller is known to be controller. So the controllers files should be inside controllers directory. Same goes with models. The class files, data class files should be inside models directory, and the views should be inside views directory. If you look into closely, then you can see that account controller has views inside the directory called account, and for home controller views, it has inside a directory called home, and same goes with manage. If you look into home, and in this home directory, you can see about, is over here, contact is over here, and index directory is over here. So this is how the application structure is maintained. So you have to follow this convention. Means if you are going to create a new controller class, then you should create this inside this directory. And if you are going to create a new model, that should be inside this directory. And if you are going to create a new view, let's say for an home controller, then it should be inside home directory. And for account, it should be inside account directory, which makes your application cleaner, easy to read, and easy to work with. So that's how you should place. Okay, so now let's go a little deeper in. Okay, so controllers. I have already shown you the application structure and in general how the controller file looks like, where it is placed, and how does it work. But now I want to give you a little bit description about controllers. What is controller? Controller is a class file that inherits from a class called controller. All the controllers that you create in MVC applications, they are the child class of controller class. If you know about inheritance, then you will know what I'm talking about. So in C Sharp, you know that C Sharp is an object-oriented programming language. So in C Sharp, we have this feature called inheritance. Inheritance means inheriting all the properties and methods of a parent class. Means if I'm going to, there is a class called class A, okay, and in class A there are some properties and some methods. Then if I create class B, which inherits from class A, that means all the properties and methods defined inside class A can be used from class B as well. That means class B inherits class A. So the same thing goes in controllers class as well. In MVC, all the controller classes that we'll be creating and that are created like you just saw before, there is account controller, there is home controller, there is manage controller. All those controller classes inherit from controller class. Let me show you. See, inherits from controller class. That means all the features and properties can be used from this controller class. And what does a controller do? A controller accepts user requests, retrieves model, which is data, as per request, based upon your request, and then returns a response. That response can just be the data or view with data. And there are several results that you can produce from controllers. And the main result is called action result. Among action results, there are several other results. For an example, view result or the partial view result or the JSON result. There are several other results, or you can just return the file content result as well. So these results can be returned as a response from controller. So controller is the main hub over here, which accepts your request. Then based upon your request, it processes the data and gives you the response. So this is how the controller works. So like I explained to you before, controller has multiple action methods. What are action methods? In a very simple definition, it's a public method of a controller. You know that controller is also just a class. It's the class which inherits from controller class. So in controller, there are several methods. Those methods which are public are known as action methods. And action methods gives you different results. Like I just said before, it gives you view result, it gives you partial view result, it gives you JSON result, or let's say it gives you file content result. So there are several others results which are known as action methods and which accepts the request and then returns the response. So that's what action methods are. For an example, okay, let's say for an example, this is the controller, home controller, and you can see we have this action method called index. This is the controller and this is the action method. And this action method returns a view. There is this another action result called about, which gives you a result called view. Okay, so this is class and these are the action results. So let's say I want to create a new action result called uh, about content. Okay, who? So I just created a class action method called who. So this action result is supposed to return something. So I can return view. So when I go to home controller and request for who, then this will be returning a view. So right now, if we look into this home controller's view, which is inside views directory and subdirectory called home, there is no view called who. So we have to create that view. And in Visual Studio, you can easily create that by right click on the view and then click on add view. So if you click on add view, so it will give you the name of the view, who, and will not be using any model, just the empty, and then use a layout page. Layout page is the master page that is used as a uh, common view for the consistent UI for all the views that we'll be using. So we'll talk about the layout page later, and just click on add. And if you look into the home subdirectory over here, you will see a new view called who. See, this is who. Now I'll show you how the controller works and how it gives you data back. So let's run this application. Okay, see, this is a request to our MVC application. And if you look into this request, you see this is our root path, and home is the name of the controller, and who is the action result inside this controller called home. So this is the route. This is the route that we used to call action results. So see, like I explained you previously, if you go back over here in app start and in route config, you can see that whenever we create a request or we send a request to MVC application, first we send the name of the controller, and here, sorry, here home is the name of the controller, and then we send the name of the action. This is the name of the action, who, see, home is the controller and who is the name of the action. Okay, so and then we let's go back to route config, and you see this ID, this is optional. That means I haven't passed ID, nothing. So it's optional. So I can make request to this MVC application without passing ID as a parameter. So just by passing name of the controller and the name of the action result, I can send request to this application. So what it does is, let's put a debugger over here. Okay, you can just press F9 or just click on left panel over here. So let me enter it again. So you see, when I click on home controller and click on who action results, it hits the debugger point over here, and here it gives you view as a result. So what it does, it takes your request, and based upon this request, it goes over here and returns you view as a result. So when I continue, so this is the result. This is a view, and here in view, this is a view, and you can make some changes. Let's run this. Okay, let's remove this debugger point. Continue. You see, this is the result. So who is the result here? So that's how controller works. It takes your request, goes here, and gives you the result. For now, this is just the view. We haven't bind the data with view, but for now it's fine. So we are just using view over here. So here, sorry. Okay, see that's how controllers work, and there are several other types of acting methods, but we'll discuss about this later. Now let's go back to data. What are data? What are models, and how do we bind this with the views? So if you want to create a model, you have to create a model inside a directory called models, and let's collapse all those. Let's go to models here. You just saw before that we were able to see the result like this, but we haven't bind any model with this view. So let's do that. So I'm going to create a new model inside a models directory. Let me create a new model called, oh, sorry, let me stop this application. I'm going to create a new model, add class, and my model will be who. Model is nothing else but just a class, and in who I'll be creating a new property called name, just the name. Get and set. Okay. Oh, sorry, my bad. Public string name. In who class called who, I've created a new property called name. Okay. So in home controller, before returning view, I'll be adding a model over here. Who equals to new who. Sorry. Who. See here you see that it says that who cannot be found. Why? Because this class is inside a namespace called first MVC.models, which you haven't used over here. So we have to use this first. First MVC.models. So once we use this namespace, we'll be able to use this who class, and in who I'll be putting the property name also to my name. Okay. So now I want to bind this view with this object called who. Okay. Now let's run this. And we'll be experiencing some error over here. Okay. So this is just the home controllers index. Whenever there's no path, see there's no controller's name and no action result name, then you should know that it's home controllers index action method. How? That's from here. If you look into route config, then this is the default controller name and default action name. So now let's move to, let's request home controllers who action result. So that's how we do it. Just a minute. Okay, so here home is the controller and who is the action result that will be requesting for. So let's click on this. Who is the result over here? Why? See, there is not the object and not the object's name that we were expecting. So that's a problem here. So why? Because we have passed who object inside this view, but we haven't called that from the view. So here, this is the view. Here you have to use model. That means model, and you have to use first MVCs models. Inside models, there must be this class called. So this is a model that we'll be using. Here, instead of who, I'll be using models name property. See, that's how easy here. Here, this view will be expecting the model called who. And here we can use the property of model. And this model is being passed from this controller over here. So it just creates the new model data and passes that data with the view. Now, when we call that action result, let's hit enter again. And you can see the data is there. So this is the model. This is how the controller handles your request. This is the model. And this is the view that binds with model. So basically that's how MVC works. Controller takes care of your request. Based upon this request, it processes the data, means you can put some logic over here, which if you need a clean code, you can separate out. That's a different thing, but you put the business logic over here, and once you get the data, that you put that data along with this view and send it to the view, which expects this data, and that data can be displayed to the user like this, and this is how your result looks like. So that's basically how MVC works. So if you, let's say now let's create one more action result to make it more clear. Let's say I want to display a list of students. So I think that this would be more practical example. I want to display the list of students, let's say. So I need to create a new action result called students. Or you know what? Let's create a new controller. Here, let's add a controller. Okay. Now there are several types of controllers that you can create using MVC. So these are MVC5 controller, which is an empty one. This one's with read-write actions, and these are with using entity framework. We have this web API as well, web API, which is a different thing than MVC. Most of the thing that resembles same, but the main purpose of web API it's different. So let's stick with the MVC5 controller, empty controller, and click on add. And here I'll be creating student controller. Click on add. See, if I create controller, I create inside controllers directory. If I create model, I create models directory. And if I create views, I create inside views directory for the corresponding controller. That's how working with MVC works. So here in student controller, whenever we create a default a new controller, it gives you a different action result called index, because index is always the default, and it gives you this default code snippet. That means that definitely will be most of the times we will be returning views which has some data that needs to be displayed. So in a student controller, there is this index, and we have this view. Okay, so now before displaying this view, okay, let's run this. Let's run this first. Okay, I click on Google Chrome. Okay, and to call student controller, we have to type student, no controller needed. Then name of the item result. And if it is index, then you don't even need to mention the index if it is in the action method. But if it is a different action method name than index, then you have to mention the action result name. Otherwise, if it is index, then you don't even need to mention it. And just click on OK. So you see, the view index or its mask was not found, or no view index supports the search location. See, that's how convention works. Whenever I click on student controller and it looks for view, it goes inside views, and there must be a directory called student, and there should be a view. See, we don't have view for that controller yet. So we have to create that one first, which let's do this. Let's stop this one. And creating view, it's quite easy. Just click on view and add view. This time, I'll do it in a little different way. I'll do it manually. Right click on views, create a new folder called student. Sorry. Oh, okay, they're already the student. And here I have to create a view called index. Add view called index and click on add. Okay, so whenever I click a view, so this is how it looks like. This is the view bag title. We'll talk about what this view bag is. Uh, Okay, let's change from index to students. We'll be displaying the list of students over here. And now run the application. Now we have the view. So this must show a view with the as2 having students on it. Okay, see? Now we can see a text called students. Now let's add some students over here. We want to show some list of students. So doing that, let's create a new model called student first. So let's stop this application again. And to create a new data, we have to go inside models and add a class called student. Okay, student, and let's add a few properties over here. The first thing is the name and grade and choose price, gender, and address. Okay. Now we have this model called student and four properties called name, grade, gender, and address. Okay. So we want to display the list of students in the students view. So let's do that. Let's create a list. List student. Okay. I need to reference this one. Let's use this using first MVC.models. Need to create students, new list of students. Okay, let's do it a little easy for now. I want to add a new student. name, class, address, gender, gender, male, and grade 5. And one more student, new student, name, Chiu, address, gender, gender, name, grade 8. So one more student, you can do without parentheses as well. Name, address, okay, let's stick with 24. Gender, female, and grade also. Okay. You can create with or without parentheses. Now, while returning view, I want to bind list of students to this view. Okay. So once I bind, I have to do the same in index as well in view. I have to model. Model would be list of students. So this is what the model will be binding. Okay. Now in the list of the students, now I want to create a table, a simple table, a bootstrap table. If you have some knowledge about bootstrap CSS, then I think you will know what I'm doing. I'm going to create a table, table, border, and table was striped. I just want to stripe that, and I want to create a head. Name, address, gender, grade, address, gender, grade. And this is head section. Now let's create a body section. Here we will be having the list of the students of body. So how do we do this? Since it's a list, we will be iterating the students. And the best thing about Rather is you can write the code in Vue base as well. So if you have to write C# code inside Vue, you have to start with @ sign. Yeah, if some of you have worked before on ASPF, then you would know that we would be using start with this one, less than and percentage, then enclose it with percent and it's greater than symbol. This is what we used to use in ASPF, but in Razor, we use @ and semicolon star. Here we put the code. So I want to iterate. For iterating, you can use either for or for each, whatever you like to, but I prefer for each. For each var student in model. This model varies based upon the model implemented this one. Here, when we used who inside home, here this model means a class called who, but in student, this model means list of class called student. So it says students. So I'm iterating this model which returns a student, list of student. So I want to create a row. First column, I will be using students name. So let's copy this. Then we have address, we have gender, and we have grade. Okay. So see, it's pretty clean and pretty easy. Let's start. So let's see this how it works. See, that's easy. And students, you can see Vikas from Kathmandu, Jimmy from Kathmandu, Sweda from Kathmandu. So these are the list that we have iterated using. See, and using Bootstrap, it's quite easy to have this kind of interface. It's a pretty cool table that you can use. Okay, so that's how Vue and Modal works together to create a web application. So it's quite easy and it's really fast to do this. And code is pretty clean as you'll see. There's nothing much messed up. It's pretty clean, and you can even use some basic HTML. If you know basic HTML, then you don't need to know much about those things. It's great, good. Okay, so now let's move on. That was model, and we talked about views as well, presentation UI. This is how we present a data using Vue. Student, this is the list of data, right? This is the list of data, and in this view called index, we are presenting data like this. Okay, so that's basically how what the MVC is: model, view, and controller. Okay, now let's move on next thing called view layout. View layout, I had mentioned here this earlier that we have this view layout, which is also known as a master page for the consistent design. Means you see here, if you look into my view, there's no mentioning of horizontal menu. See, in this layout, you can see I have this horizontal menu with this application name, home, about, contact, register, login, and where I have this footer. So in every pages that I navigate, I can see this horizontal menu and this footer, every pages. So even though my pages do not have, how can I see those horizontal menu and footers? So that's uh, how it is being controlled from master page called layout.css.html, which we can find inside shared directory inside views folder. In views folder, you can see shared directory, and in shared directory, you have this underscore layout. This is where you can see the navigation bar and then footer. And this is where our body gets rendered. See, this is the layout page. Here, if you look closely, it has this, all the HTML tags needed. And we have as head tag and the necessary CSS files and bundles are rendered over here. And here, this is the navigation. And here, this is the container where render body, this function renders the content that are written inside this views. This code is rendered in this section, and we have this horizontal line, and this is the footer section. So if you have to make some changes, like for an example, if you want to add a new menu item called student over here, then you don't have to change it every page. You just make a change in the master page, and it reflects all over your pages. So that's how we do it. Just a minute, okay? So here we have the three menus: contact, about, and home. One more, HTML.action link. I'll tell you what this action link is. So here is the link text. Okay, link text is student for now, and the action name. Okay, this is the action name that I want to call when I click on student. So that is index, and okay, there are several others options for methods. Just stick with this one: link text, action name, and controller name. My controller name is student. Just save it. If you have to make some changes on CS files, then you have to stop this application and rebuild. But if you have to make some changes, then you just make some changes and just refresh the page. You don't need to stop it and rebuild the whole application. Okay, now see, we have this one more menu item called student, and in every pages the change is consistent. Now if I click on student, see, it calls students, controllers, action, index, action, result. So that's how we make some changes. Like for an example, if I want to uh, okay, change this name from application name to okay something else, then I just changed over here. So let's say who is the name of the app, and here I can change who. Okay, see, changes are there. Great, you see, the name is changed, and it works fine. Okay, so that's where the master page is, and if you have to make some changes, then you can make some changes in the CSS files, but there are some bundles and modifications which we need to discuss later. So let's leave it for now. It's made some basic changes, so it's fine for now. Okay, so that's what the view is. Now in view, while creating views, Razor View Engine provides you some very cool feature called HTML helpers. HTML helpers are the extensions that help you create HTML inputs or HTML elements, which makes you easier to work with. Okay, let's create a to see how it works. So let's create a new view called add in students. So we'll be adding a new view called add for the students. Okay, so let's go to a student controller and okay, let's put, I'll put this into the class section so that I need to worry about this one. Oh, sorry, my bad. I want to put it into okay. So that's my students. I initialized 3 more students over here and next screen. Okay. Now I want to create a new page called add, and let's go to student controller and create a new action result, public action result, or add. Okay. In add, we'll be creating a new form where a user can enter the name, address, gender, and grade. Okay, so let's do this. Create a new instance of student view. For view, I want to bind a new class, new student, like this. Okay. So, but I don't have add view yet in the student directory. So let's add that one. This one is easy. Add. And now you can see there's new form view called add. And let's find this with a model. First time, this is our project name, and we have this models, and then we have this student. Okay, you can write this one as well, or better way would be using to add this reference and then bind this student class as a model to this view. I want to create a form. Okay, I want to create a form where user can input some data. Okay, for creating forms, I want to use Bootstrap, but here In normal HTML, you would be adding form like this, and here you would be using the action, then you would be adding method like this. But the same thing can be accomplished using HTML helpers. HTML helpers are some of the tags that can be used to create HTML elements. Means instead of writing form like this, you can do the same thing using, okay, I'll remove that later, uh, using, sorry, begin form. Okay, here this will create form for you, and in begin form there are some things, there are some attributes that you can use. For an example, action name. When I click on submit, where does it go? Okay, so this is the action name also. Okay, when I click on, we'll go to add of a controller called student. Okay, and form method. We'll discuss about it later, but let's create a form for now. Okay, I want to create a div class form group, and okay, I'll have four properties: name, address, gender, and grade. Okay, for those I need label and an input text field. Okay, so to create a label, dot label for, that's label for, and I have to put the expression and solve that x dot address. So begin with name. And now I need the equals to. Okay, if you go into the bootstrap here, it will teach you how to create a new form. Here. Okay, getting started. Uh, components. Okay, here we have forms. So when I add a form, then it should be uh, this is a form. This is forms, and okay, we'll be using this one, div class equals to form group, and we should have horizontal. New, you can use class like a full md equals to full md new class equals to full md 2 like this. And then create a class full md 4. Here you can add a text box like this. Text box for x or that x dot name. Okay, let's see how it works. Click on Google Chrome. Run this application. And I'm to students add form. Okay, you see, we have this label and we have this text box and this is add. now let's make a little bit modifications. I'll remove this one form. We won't be needing this one. Here, let's change from add to add student. Okay, and let's change the title as well and student. And here I want to put a class called element. So just check the class name, and that is form control. Make your text box look a little bit nice, and let's refresh this application. Okay, now we have name and student. Okay, okay. Stop a little bit. Class form horizontal. Should fix this. Okay, see now we have a name, label, and this text box. I'll be adding few more. Just copy this, paste. We'll be having 4, right? So name, and we have this gender. Not from let's address, address, and gender, gender, and we have grade. Okay, see, we have a name, address, gender, and grade. Now I might need a new button called save. So let's this one now, and I want to add a call button class btn, and btn let's say info for now. Default would be then here save. So okay, see, and save. Oh, did I put danger? Sorry, default, not the danger one. See, now this is pretty good. You see, you create labels and text boxes like this using this tags called HTML helpers. They generate the HTML elements from you for you. So when I create a label for, you don't need to give the name and other attributes. So it just creates. If you look into the view source for the page, you can see they all are the HTML elements. See, form, action, student add. We have this method and this form group. See, this label class and for, and we have this input class, ID, and type equals to text. So these HTML helpers help you to create form elements like this, or I say the HTML elements like this. So it's pretty easy and pretty comfortable to work with. So and that's how it is being done. Okay, but now there are a lot more things to learn from to learn in MVC, but to stop the session today, and should, I think that's it for today. Hope you like it, and if you have some questions, then ask me, then I'll try to answer it at my best. So thank you everybody. So it's my demo webinar, so hope you like it and let me know the feedbacks. Thank you, and stop.